This is take two because somebody forgot to hit the right record button. We wouldn't want to say who it is, but it was one of the two of us. And so, well, I got to take responsibility. Let me tell you, folks, Hanok Young and I just had about 10 minutes of an amazing conversation. And so we're going to try to recreate that. Hanok.
Yes.
Modain, Israel.
Yeah.
You're in for Shabbat.
Yes. The home of the Maccabees.
Yeah. Shabbat is coming, and that's a good thing. And
it's again, a very good thing.
Israel is going to be celebrating a Shabbat with everything closed down, and that's an amazing.
This will be the second week in a row. Yeah, without a doubt, this is the second week in a row that there'll be no public transportation anywhere in Israel. There'll be no malls that are open, no restaurants that are open, no bars, no concerts, no sporting events, none, absolutely none. The second time. Now, our clocks changed last night, so we're back to daylight savings time. That means we're 7 hours ahead of y'all in the Northeast. I hope I'm not insulting you in North Carolina by referring to you as being part of the Northeast.
We'll talk about that later when I see you.
Yeah, bless my heart. I'm a little weak on my U.S. geography.
You just lost a plate of collard greens over that one.
Yeah. The self-isolation that we've been going through has gotten increasingly tighter. First of all, a few weeks ago was, no gatherings under 200 people. Oh, excuse me, over 200 people. Then it was no gatherings over 100 people. Then it was no gatherings over 10 people. Now, legally, every Beit Knesset, every synagogue in the country is closed.
Wow.
It's a fascinating, it'll be great after the fact to look back on this from a historical or sociocultural perspective and, try to figure out what it all means. It's weird to be limited to your home, to only be allowed where you can be arrested and get a substantial fine as well. And I just read before that our armed soldiers are joining the police to enforce this. It's the first time ever.
Wow.
Israel's not a banana republic. Although if you a little later we'll get on to what's going on with the Knesset, and maybe you can say, Hanoch, you were wrong about that. But we're not allowed, except for going to the pharmacy or going for food, and most people are doing online delivery orders. In fact, I placed an order a week ago, and there's a 10-day lag between when they can deliver the food.
Wow. Our
stores have plenty of food. Unlike in parts of America, which I don't quite understand, we even have toilet paper. Bless our hearts, or something.
Whatever.
We're not allowed, like for recreation, to go for a walk. We can go 100 meters from our home. 100 meters is approximately the length of an American football field. So this is a radically different thing for people like myself who are a bit outgoing, perhaps. A bit, just a little bit, just a teeny bit. This is, don't start with me, Mike. This is a really unusual thing. But what's interesting is it's placed more of an emphasis on the internet, and hence there's more of a responsibility for people to use discernment. As our mutual friend Rivka Lambert-Adler pointed out, that there's more legitimate Torah information online, and she said literally with a whole day she doesn't have the time to go through all of it, which is an amazing concept. Also, it's kind of prophetic. On the other hand, you need to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. You need to be able to say, just because there's a YouTube video, when people say to me, for instance, well, Hanoch, what do you think of this? And I'll write back, and I'll write, for an hour and a half of all the things that are wrong with it. All the factually based information, historical, theological, archaeological. And they'll say, yeah, but the guy has 3 YouTube videos. Of course, anyone can make a video. Heck, we're making a video right now.
We're doing, and I just began using my YouTube channel yesterday, and I have 4 videos on it, so I'm glad you didn't say 4.
I have 6 of them I'm about to release over the next 2 months. Yeah, awesome. I know exactly what you're saying.
Great. So I mentioned to you a verse out of Daniel. The book of Daniel says that in the last days, knowledge shall increase. So people will run to and fro, which that's kind of shut down. But knowledge shall increase. With the increase of knowledge, it's a good thing, but it can also have a negative aspect in that knowledge becomes cheapened.
Absolutely.
So anybody can go online. Literally, anyone that has a phone can go online and record anything. And maybe it sounds good. This is a day that I think one of the first things that we need to be praying about is discernment.
Absolutely.
We would be able to discern what is true and what is not. It's, Deuteronomy is clear that if someone prophesies something, even if it comes to pass, if they're not upholding the Torah, that a lifestyle of Torah, that you're not to listen to them.
And the best news is, in biblical times, we got to stone them to death.
Which would have, there's another reason.
I'd be one of those guys having the rock concession, saying, "Come on, guys."
You would be. There's another reason you weren't born then. Okay.
Yes, it's interesting you mentioned that. I heard something a while ago, which basically stated that we're kind of floating aimlessly in a sea of information, but we're drowning from a lack of knowledge. Information is out there, and it's like you see people pontificating about the COVID-19. Now, when I say pontificating, these are our peers. Some of them are friends of ours who they're not epidemiologists. They're not infectious, virus specialists. But they're sharing an article, and what's interesting is a majority of people who are talking about this on the net go from one extreme to the other. Mm-hmm. The ultimate apocalyptic scenario of millions upon millions to all you need to do is take a little vitamin C and zinc. No problem. And, the fact that this virus appears to live on, heck, even cardboard, let alone metal, we're dealing with a new kind of animal here. But again, that's not an area of expertise of mine or yours.
Yeah. But I'm not I don't have expertise on this one either, but I did watch it happen 3 times, is called birth pangs. Where are we in the midst of the birth pangs? This is a woman going into labor it's like, when do you go to the doctor? When do you go to the birthing center? How short, how strong? And at some point in time, you have to go to someone who can check on some other things that are happening.
Right.
We don't have that today. We don't know where we are. Is this the worst birth pang we're going to have? Well, it is. Yeah. Maybe we're getting a little easier than some of us thought.
Yeah, I would like to think that this is the worst, and then the rainbows are going to come out and everything's going to be great. I would love to believe that. Using the a woman in labor analogy, again, not an area of tremendous expertise of mine, but I can tell you it appears from the perspective here in Israel that the contractions are stronger and they're coming more frequently. What we don't know is exactly how many centimeters dilation is occurring.
Mhm.
So it's a time that calls upon us as people of faith, and it's a time that calls upon us to really decide what's most important in life. And, I mentioned to you that I really enjoyed your videos on the kingdom, the coming kingdom, specifically because, and in the second one, you really laid it out of really where people need to stand and focus. And, Israel is the center of God's universe.
Mhm. Literally.
And when he speaks of the land, I know, when you and I have this conversation, it's really preaching to the choir for either of us to say this.
Oh, by the
But
way, I
the
was a
land,
pastor, and preaching to the choir is always thought, well, the choir already knows everything. Though the choir is the one that normally didn't listen to anything. Okay, so just to clear that up.
see, these kind of tidbits for me are important, and I'll tell
Yes.
you why. For instance, when people said to me that my speaking style was reminiscent of a Baptist preacher, now what I needed to do, are you frozen or can you hear me?
You're good. You're fine.
Mike?
Yeah, you're good.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So people told me my style of speaking was like a Baptist preacher, like at a revival. And you have to understand, I, I assumed it was a compliment. I had no idea what that meant. So they said, Hanoch, what you need to do is get hold of a Bible and wave it. Well, let me reach over here. The Bible that I use is the Koran Tanakh. Okay, I tried waving it, and I wound up with horrific tendinitis in my wrist. Because, first of all, it was hardcover. You needed a softcover Bible to kind of wave like this. See, here I am, practicing my Hebrew grammar. Anyway, but we're not living in a show. We're living in reality. We're living at a time when I think when we come out of this on the other side, the world as we know it will be different.
Yeah.
For people like me who are huggers, this is like the ultimate trauma. It's like, I basically, sleep with another pillow now, to hug. I mean, it's kind of like, I miss hugging. Will people not shake hands in the future? Will we all be vaccinated? And people based on their own eschatological concept or construct are saying, "Oh, that's the mark of the this and that and the other thing." You know what? Let's try to live one day at a time. And for us who are allegedly people of faith, let's believe that Hashem, that God is actually in control. Just because we can't figure out why things are playing out. I mean, just before we went on, I read that Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the UK was diagnosed with COVID-19. It appears to be, thankfully, a mild case. Where is this going? I don't know. Is it reality-based to assume that we'll all be back to normal in a month? I really don't think so. I've been looking at the timelines for various treatments, and the fact that I have to say in Israel, we looking at it now in the last few weeks since Purim, we made some real mistakes here, and it had to do with the fact that our government was and remains in transition. This idea that Purim and its public celebrations were not canceled, that I saw pictures, videos of the shuk, of the Machane Yehuda market, and all the young people were out there partying and drinking, et cetera, et cetera. It's a real problem. And this idea, it was like, well, it was safe to only be with 200 people. Then it was only safe to only be with 100 people. Then it was almost like the negotiations. Should I destroy Sodom if there's, X number of people?
Yeah. Let
We
me
don't
take
know.
you back. Let me take you back to a couple of things. First of all, is that Reuben has some extra stuffed animals. Okay, and I'm sure that I can maybe talk Daniel into sending you one so you'd have something more to hug than just a pillow. So just
Well,
keep
I
that
have
in
to tell
mind.
you, I've got to thank you. I already have a few stuffed lions. I'm
Okay.
kind of big lions. And I know that your grandson Ruben, who assured me when he asked about how my day was, and I explained to him, and he said, I gotcha. It's kind of like I was clearly being dismissed. He asked, but he didn't really want to know, which I've actually had a lot of people act that way to me over the years. I don't quite understand why.
I have no idea. I have no idea. But I want to go back to something. You talk about the
Good,
day,
and then let's transition to talk about our government
yeah,
here,
the
because we've got
day-to-day
some.
life. Okay, one of the back to this thing of the birth pangs and everything. I remember a person doing a teaching one time. As a woman who has been involved in many natural births, both her own and with others, daughters, everybody else. And she was using the birth pangs as a teaching example and said, there comes a point in time in the midst of those contractions that I tell a young woman that's giving birth, you have two choices here. You have a choice. You can go one of two ways. You can either fight these contractions or you can embrace the contractions.
Yeah.
Now, the way that you embrace a contraction is to keep your mind on what is at the end. You try to envision the child that you're going to be holding. And so the way that we walk through this, for me, the way that we walk through this is we embrace what has happened. We embrace, the news is getting kind of crazy. People are going to die. People are going to get sick. But I can't, I, I, I have a choice. I can either embrace that as my prayers for the restoration of all things being answered, or I can pray that they would be answered, but fight the answer.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree, in the same way that the focus of my life is the reconciliation, restoration of all of Israel, and the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. There is nothing to indicate that any of that has changed. Quite the contrary. We're coming closer and closer to those days.
Yeah.
Despite, I got a barrage of emails asking me, so, what's going on? You guys have a government in Israel now or what? Well, we always had a government. There was an interim government. This one isn't sworn in yet. It appears, question marks and italics, that there's going to be a unity government, allegedly of 3 years in duration, that will start with Netanyahu as prime minister for 18 months, switch over to Benny Gantz, who would take the foreign minister's position. It's a guy who's never served in government. He was a chief of staff of ours. I know that mentioning all the different names and different parties and different things. Bottom line, I don't think this is a good thing. This is not a coalition that believes in the integrity of the land of Israel. The Yamina party, Naftali Bennett, Ayelet Shaked, people I voted for, who are, you'd say, Dati Leumi, national religious, may not even be in the government.
Wow.
Gantz and his associates, his party is broken up. So it's deal, whatever. These are all interim steps to the Malchut, to the monarchy, if you will, the kingship of Hashem. And we're just, we're another step closer.
I think we're in a time in which, and this is a good thing in my opinion, is that government politics is being revealed for what it is.
Yeah,
And
irrelevant.
it's the Barry Phillips and I taught on this yesterday. I'm looking at computers so much and cameras so much now. I don't even know what day it is. Usually, I just know that tomorrow I don't have to do this because it's Shabbat. But it's Psalm 2. Why did the nations rage? The people imagine a vain thing. And that Psalm, I think, is, many people are going to Psalm 91 right now. I think in traveling over towards Psalm 91, it might be a really good idea to stop at Psalm 2 and really get a hold of this. These people are but pawns in the work of the redemption and Hashem setting up his kingdom upon this earth.
I agree, and I encourage people, use the time, focus on your family, take the time out to focus on your faith community, your congregation, your fellowship, which you in all likelihood are not able to meet with, face to face for a brief period, well, however long a period of time, of where you want to go. Think of how much more you can be, should be, and need to be connected to Israel.
Yeah.
This is the time to focus and make plans.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me just say something specifically regarding the congregations, and this goes with synagogues and everything else. They may be closed down, but they're still expenses. This is not a time to take the tithes, offerings that and say, well, I'll just kind of put this over to the side. No, this still is his money. No matter if things are shut down or not, this is still his money. We still need to be looking at ways to support.
Absolutely.
And I know that some of that could go to you. I know that for us, our donations to our ministry are well. If I had a little flushing sound, that would be a good one to use right now. Are people really concerned about building the kingdom? And what does building the kingdom look like? Maybe they have some notions of what that looks like. But Hanok, you may be uncomfortable with this statement. You and I talking on the computer as a whatever I am, Messianic, Hebrew roots, Ephraimite, kind of whatever, you as an observant Jew in Modain, you and I talking, not talking at each other, not talking about each other, but talking to each other about a mutual, our mutual interest. This is a part of building the kingdom.
Absolutely. You see how easy it is? On that happy note, I have to go and finish cooking for Shabbat.
There you go.
So wish you Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And to be continued sometime next week.
You got it. All right. Take care. Be safe.
Bye-bye.